The restaurant looked almost untouched. The lights were still on. The grills had gone cold. The cash registers stood open. $581 was missing from the safe. But that wasn't what made investigators uneasy. 4 employees had simply disappeared. No signs of a struggle, no shattered windows, no blood on the floor, just 4 teenagers who had seemingly vanished into the Indiana night. At first, police weren't overly concerned. Their theory was almost laughably simple. 4 young employees, a Friday night, a little cash missing. Maybe they stole the money and decided to go out partying. Case closed, or so they thought. So instead of preserving what might have been a murder scene, they reopened the restaurant. Customers walked in. Employees cleaned the floors. Counters were wiped down. Evidence, possibly the only evidence that could have identified a killer, was unknowingly erased forever. By the time investigators realized their mistake, it was already too late. Less than 48 hours later, a couple walking through a wooded area 20 miles away made a discovery that would horrify the entire state of Indiana. 4 bodies, still wearing their Burger Chef uniforms. 2 had been executed with gunshots to the back of the head. 1 had been stabbed so violently that the knife blade snapped off inside her chest. The 4th had been beaten so brutally that he died choking on his own blood. This wasn't a robbery gone wrong. This looked like an execution. But why? Who kidnaps 4 teenagers from a fast food restaurant, drives them into the woods, kills every witness, and disappears without leaving behind a single piece of usable evidence? Over the next 4 decades, detectives would chase bearded strangers, drug traffickers, prison informants, a convicted rapist who claimed he committed the murders, and theories involving cocaine debts, motorcycle gangs, and organized crime. Some confessions sounded believable. Others completely fell apart. And through it all, one question never went away. Were the killers incredibly lucky, or did the biggest mistake belong to the police themselves? Because this isn't just one of America's most haunting unsolved murder cases. It's also the story of how a single investigative decision may have destroyed any chance of ever bringing 4 killers to justice. Tonight, we're reopening the Burger Chef murders. And by the end of this story, you'll understand why investigators still call it one of the most frustrating cold cases in American history. The man sitting across from investigators was named Donald Forrester. He was already serving a lengthy prison sentence for rape when he reached out to authorities. His offer was simple. He said he wanted to confess to the Burger Chef murders. But there was a catch. According to investigators, Forrester wanted something in return. He reportedly hoped to avoid being transferred to a more dangerous prison. Whether that made his confession a bargaining chip or the beginning of the truth, nobody knew. Still, detectives listened, and as Forrester began describing the events of the 17th of November 1978, some investigators felt they were finally hearing the story they had been chasing for more than a decade. According to his account, he wasn't acting alone. He claimed he was part of a group involved in narcotics trafficking. The target, he said, wasn't the Burger Chef. It was a debt. More specifically, a drug debt connected to Jane Freet's brother. Forrester claimed that he and several accomplices entered the restaurant through the rear entrance after closing. Inside, 16-year-old Mark Flemons allegedly tried to resist. Forrester said Mark attempted to be the hero. If that's true, he paid for it immediately. According to the confession, Mark was brutally beaten, while the other 3 employees were restrained with wire and forced into a waiting vehicle. The group then drove roughly 20 miles into the woods. There, Forrester claimed, the victims begged for their lives. He admitted that Danny Davis and Ruth Shelton were executed with gunshots to the back of the head. He said his accomplices killed Jane and Mark. It was a horrifying story. But horrifying wasn't enough. It had to be true. Detectives immediately began testing everything they could. Then something remarkable happened. Forrester led investigators directly to the remote murder site, not the general area, the exact location. Captain Mel Wilsey believed that detail carried enormous weight. After so many years, very few people should have been able to navigate straight to that isolated patch of woodland without assistance. For a brief moment, it felt as though the case might finally be over. Then it unraveled. State Trooper Jim Kramer wasn't convinced. He interviewed Forrester himself and came away with a completely different impression. Kramer believed the inmate was manipulating investigators. In his view, Forrester relied on publicly known details while filling in the gaps with vague generalities. The more Kramer questioned him, the less certain he became. Then came another twist. Forrester changed his story. Then he changed it again. Eventually, he withdrew parts of his confession altogether. Without physical evidence to support his claims, prosecutors had almost nothing. No murder weapon, no fingerprints, no DNA. No reliable eyewitness placing him at the scene. The investigation had a problem that haunted it from the beginning: evidence, or rather, the lack of it. Ironically, detectives did uncover details that seemed to support parts of Forrester's account. His former wife reportedly confirmed that, years earlier, he had returned to a rural area searching for spent shell casings. Investigators later searched the septic system of a house connected to that story and reportedly recovered shell casings consistent with his description. It sounded promising, but promising is not the same as proof. The recovered evidence couldn't establish who fired the weapon, when it had been fired, or whether it had any direct connection to the murders. In a courtroom, possibilities don't become convictions. Eventually, Donald Forrester died in prison. He took whatever truth he knew, or whatever lies he had told, to his grave. And once again, the Burger Chef murders remained officially unsolved. So, what really happened that night? The most widely discussed theory still centers on narcotics. Investigators knew Jane Fried's brother was later convicted on drug-related charges. There had been earlier reports of suspected drug activity involving people connected to the restaurant, several suspects, multiple informants, and even Forrester's own confession all pointed in roughly the same direction: drugs, debt, retaliation. But pointing in the same direction isn't the same as proving a case. None of those theories has ever been supported by enough evidence to bring charges. It's entirely possible the robbery was exactly what it appeared to be, a robbery that spiraled into mass murder. It's equally possible the money was only a distraction, masking a motive far more personal. Without new evidence, both possibilities remain exactly that: possibilities. But perhaps the greatest tragedy isn't that the killers escaped, it's that we'll never know how much evidence disappeared before investigators realized what they were dealing with. Imagine if fingerprints had been collected before the restaurant reopened. Imagine if every surface had been photographed immediately instead of recreated later. Imagine if every fiber, every footprint, every cigarette butt had been preserved. Would this case still be unsolved? We'll never know, because history doesn't allow second chances. Today, the original Burger Chef building is gone. Drivers pass through Speedway with no idea that one of America's most haunting unsolved crimes unfolded on that ground. The laughter of 4 teenagers finishing another Friday shift was replaced by decades of silence. Jane Fried was only 20. Ruth Shelton was 17. Danny Davis and Mark Flemons were just 16.
4 young lives ended before they had the chance to truly begin. And somewhere, if anyone besides the killer still knows exactly what happened that night, they've kept that secret for nearly half a century, maybe out of fear, maybe out of loyalty, or maybe because the one mistake that mattered most was made before the investigation had even begun. The Burger Chef murders remind us that solving a crime isn't just about catching the right suspect, it's about preserving the truth before it disappears. Sometimes evil leaves behind fingerprints, sometimes it leaves behind witnesses, and sometimes all it leaves behind are questions. If you followed this case with me from beginning to end, I'd like to hear your thoughts. Do you believe the murders were connected to a drug debt, or was the robbery itself always the real motive? Share your theory in the comments. Every perspective helps keep these victims' stories alive. And if you enjoy carefully researched true crime told through evidence rather than sensationalism, don't forget to subscribe. There are countless cold cases still waiting to be reopened. I'm KnoxFiles. Every case leaves behind questions. Our job is to make sure they're never forgotten. Thanks for watching. Until next, stay curious and stay safe.